Hey y'all, it's me, your favorite pimp, Ty. Um, we are here tonight speaking with my very good friend, Feleccia Turner. So let's get into it. Hey Feleccia, how you doing?
Hey, girlfriend, I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. It's good to see you.
Likewise. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for being here. So, just as a quick introduction of you, I consider you a unicorn. And I think your other friend calls you that as well because you are a pimp in the higher educational space. So you have your PMP, and you also work in the higher educational space. That is a space that we don't see a lot of people actually running projects necessarily right the right way using the methodology. So tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get started.
Yes, as you mentioned, I'm Feleccia Turner. I live in Dallas, Texas with my family. I'm a wife, a mom, and I would say a boss immediately after that.
Yes.
I've been in higher education for a little bit over 15 years. And I've moved around mainly in the enrollment management space. And I've been so fortunate to find my niche in championing projects that focus on improving the student experience, the first year experience, by strategically focusing on people, processes, and technology. So, how can we improve those? Because in the higher ed space, sometimes they can be outdated, and we just need to revolutionize the institutions in different ways and find out how we can do that. So that's a little bit about me and what I'm currently up to.
Okay, that's awesome. First of all, you live in Texas, in Dallas. Can you tell me what is going? Can you call Kyrie? Somebody? Can you get him? Jason? Can you call him on the phone and tell them to come on here? Because I'm trying to be on the team, but I don't know what's happening right now.
You better say a prayer for him. That's
We're
all
gonna
I
send him a
got. I
prayer.
don't know what's going on. We're going to get all the way here just to be here.
Well,
I don't know.
I know you the boss, so like go out there on the court and figure this thing out. Like, come on.
I got a lane. I got a lane.
Oh my God. And your lane is project management in educational institutions, right? So tell us about your experience. What has your experience taught you about the importance, right, of project management skills in the field of higher education?
Yeah, so you would think that in higher ed we would be um, wise enough to notice that we're already on a schedule, right? We're on an academic calendar every year, and the academic calendar is typically planned out for 3 years in advance minimum. And so that's how my brain has worked since I had access to it before I even knew what the industry was, project management. And I would plan everything around it. And so early on in my career, I was selected to launch a program, a new program, a nursing program is what it was for the school. Because my then dean saw my knack for, again, providing technology, people, and processes, being able to kind of merge them together to make the experience better.
Okay.
But my experience has taught me is that I needed training, and I needed a methodology to follow because colleges are like little cities.
Mm-hmm.
So there are so many, the different departments, the different schools. We have facilities. I mean, they're just huge.
Yeah.
It's so multifaceted. That scope creep almost happens in every project without people being able to attach the terminology to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really embedded in the culture.
Mm.
People learn to pivot. They learn to just kind of work with it if they can. And so when I come in a meeting now as a project manager and I'm considering all the things, kind of breaking it down as much as I can, the structure, they're really surprised
Mm-hmm.
because they think about it from we're always focused on the students and the outcomes, which is great, but we can plan projects and operationalize them
Yeah.
into the academic calendar. So my experience in bringing the PMI methodology to the field
Mm-hmm.
has been incredibly rewarding.
I love it. And you talk
Mm-hmm.
about the people, the processes, the technology. I think a lot of people forget to focus on the people side, right? So can you talk about how important it is to bring your team together and to build that, that camaraderie in order to make your project successful?
That is a great question. So another word that we use often in hell, I think both project management and higher education is silos. And so, higher ed, we work in silos a lot. And there can be ego and ownership attached to it. So if I'm working with the School of Business on a project, they almost feel like it's theirs,
Mm-hmm.
not recognizing sometimes that your students had to come through an enrollment funnel. They have advisors. They have to pay for school. So now you got advising. You have financial aid. You're never in a silo. I
Yeah.
don't really care what you do unless you're having like a conversation in a classroom.
Right.
Then it's one-to-one faculty to students. Um, so teaching people that we have to work cross functionally,
Mm.
and then helping leadership to understand. Leadership may understand how to run their divisions, but again, not everyone focuses on how to move the needle and how to make effective change by working cross functionally in higher education.
Yeah.
Because again, we school of business,
Yeah.
we academic,
Yeah.
and it's almost never that,
Yeah.
almost never.
Yeah. So then how do you break down those silos? What do you do as a PM to break down those silos?
Yeah, one process that I really enjoy leading a process is process mapping.
Okay.
Really helping people to see the student journey. I've been most successful in that way. If I ask my leadership to allow me to go out and put my student hat on, my passion is rooted in being a first generation HBCU graduate who did not have the support of family, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so they wished me well, but could anybody help me? Like we can help our kids,
Uh-huh.
right? I
Right.
went 5.5 hours off to college. I had a car that I was paying for. I showed up on campus literally with the money to pay for orientation to get my dorm room key, and I had to figure it out.
Yeah.
And so I had purchased all of my things from working over the summer before I went. So I think about these students who are in this same situation, and it's like, how can you make this experience as seamless, as user friendly, as invitable, as inviting, and as personable as you can for the students. And so oftentimes I've asked to go out on sort of these, you know, small projects. Well, I'll go out for 4 to 6 weeks
Mm.
and I look at it from the student's perspective. And when you bring back that information,
Yeah.
that often will wake people up
Okay.
to what's going on, how the student looks at it, and they'll open their ears then.
Okay. And so I like that. That's really good, like shadowing the students and things like that. I love that because that to me is like part of like the requirements gathering. And for some reason I'm like this big geek about gathering the requirements, right? Because that helps the projects to run correctly if we know exactly what's going on. But once you get it back to your team, how does that hope open their eyes? What do you do with that information?
Yeah. Um, I'll take this project for example, where the scope was to build a one-stop student center. for the university. The president had approved it, multi-million-dollar project. They didn't realize, they thought that it was as much as renovating a building on campus. They said we're going to take 5 offices and combine them so that students can come to one office to get the majority of their questions answered. You will
Mm-hmm.
have some specialized questions where we need to dig deep, but over like 80% of questions, just like when you go to the Apple store, most questions can be answered then, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's not an escalation.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so we started the project, and it had bled over into so many areas that they weren't aware that it was going to do. And like we had to like form this committee, and we were working on the student communications around the academic calendar. By the time we combined recruitment and admissions, financial aid, first year advising, scholarships, and registrar communications, we were nudging the students, communicating with the students like 98 times in 3 months.
Wow.
From when you combine all of those.
Right.
And why? Because financial aid had been allowed to create their own communication plan, advising. But why aren't we thinking about the student? And by this time, I'm gonna either unsubscribe, I'm gonna ignore.
Right.
I'm not. You didn't call me. All I want to do is go to school.
Right.
How can you make this process better? And retention is always a thing for
Right.
higher ed institutions. We have, like, for right now, the institution I work for, we lose 50% of our students after the first year.
Oh.
So we do all of this work on the front end to enroll them, but we lose 50% of them. And the answer is, the question is always why.
Right.
What was their experience? What
Right.
caused them to leave school?
Yeah.
And it's not always because of personal reasons. So I don't know if I answered your question. I know I kind of went around.
Yeah, you
But
did. Yeah,
yeah.
I was just and even with your team, so I guess I'm trying to like bring it back into your teams and using that information, quantifying it, qualifying it, and then also talking about like the issue that you might have of trust as a project manager, right? So, with that last question, how do you take that data and quantify it, qualify it, and then make the processes better or make your projects better?
Sure. Now, I will say this is where higher ed kind of geeks out in that when you get to showing data
Uh huh.
and you get to giving them information that they can understand, everybody is ready to work
Yeah.
then and make it better. We're also, I would say, very what's the word? We follow leadership without question sometimes. So when you have a good administrator, what we would call them, right? Somebody who can make and sponsor a huge initiative, make that kind of decision. If they support it, or once they support it, everybody else is going to follow. And and as long as we can be strategic, so teaching, being clear on this is not going to get done in 9 months. This implementation may be 15 months,
Right.
and then we're going to have to come back and monitor and control, So just, I have found having a good project sponsor in higher education makes all the difference.
Yes. I couldn't
Do you
agree.
feel that way about? Okay.
Oh my God. A project, I don't care what type of project it is, if your sponsor is disengaged, there is not much traction that you can make. You will struggle to keep that project on the tracks and keep your teams engaged, because if they feel like the person that sponsored the project that has the money, if they aren't involved and they don't care, why should I care? Like I still have a day job. I don't have to be here. So yeah, I totally agree with you. But when it comes to, you said that a lot of times in higher ed that people follow the administrator as long as they're on board and things like that. But what about when you have a project sponsor that isn't necessarily used to project management methodology? How do you bring Do you drag them kicking and screaming, or is it a slow process to introduce them to the methodologies?
It's definitely a slow process introducing them. I don't drag them kicking and screaming, right? Because this is where I'm fortunate in work life balance,
Okay.
because we're not for profit.
Okay.
So a lot of times the outcomes aren't being measured against profit.
Mm.
So people, they dragging their feet. So I'm gonna go and drag my feet too as a project manager. Not necessarily drag the project, but I've had to learn to be more patient in this
Mm.
field,
Okay.
because what is unique about my experience is that I started off in the proprietary lane, for
Mm.
profit school, but I didn't agree with ethically how we enroll students and the cost we were charging them. But I learned how things work there, and they were operating for profit.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of it made sense. And so it took about 10 years for me to see the public sector now really attempt to achieve the same thing that for profits were trying to achieve a decade before.
Okay.
It's just that they're not for profit, so it's better for the student. For example, a cosmetology program at a for-profit school may cost $14,000 for the student, right? And they're gonna get top-notch scissors and cases and salons and all of that. But at a public school, college, like right now, we're $79 a credit hour, so you
Mm.
can get a whole nursing degree for less than, I think it's like less than $5,000. Like, it's
Uh-huh.
so affordable,
Yeah.
right? And so it's kind of like going to the food stamp office and the Social Security. They're public offices, so you don't your expectations are really low.
Uh-huh.
But the entity I work for now is so large. We have a lot of resources that and we have a lot of technology that we really are trying to innovate.
Yeah.
And so it's just about, we've established a PMO,
Okay.
right? And so there we have a continuous improvement office, and so and it's been buzzing. Like, the word project management has been buzzing throughout the organization, and so I think people are learning.
Okay.
They're learning, but when someone is not used to it, that's an area that I'm growing as a project manager. Just teaching your project sponsor, and your primary stakeholders to trust you.
Mm-hmm.
Because, even kind of throwing, like, personally in there, what is it, the four laws of agreement? What is it, the four?
Oh, your team building process, the storming.
No, like, it's a personal book. The four agreements,
Okay.
and it's never take anything personal,
Mm.
right? And because I've gone through a phase where I'm like, okay, what you think, I can't do my job or what? But it's
Girl.
not that, you know, is it right? And I have to come back and say, okay, don't take it personal.
Okay.
They don't understand your role.
Okay.
Like, there's only one of me in my entire division of over 200 people. Like, they don't
Okay.
understand the role.
Okay.
So it's like teaching them what we do, and the purpose of it, and how
Right.
it's gonna help all of us.
Okay.
So time, patience, communications. Communication.
And
Yeah,
and more communication, because
yeah.
I
It's
cannot.
hard.
Woo, yes, it is. It is especially hard when, like you said, and especially it, like a stakeholder, maybe not even your executive stakeholder, when they are just nasty and rude throughout a project. I'm just like, why are you being like this? Like, I am not the right person for you to keep poking. Like, I'm a Taurus all day long. Like, we'll take it as long as we can, but when when you wave that red flag, it's on and popping, and you don't want to turn me into that. So maybe I need to go and read that book. Maybe I'm gonna drop it in the chat for a resource for other project
Yeah.
managers, because sometimes people do get under your skin. They treat you crazy. Like you said, they don't understand your role. They don't understand your responsibility, because ultimately, at the end of the day, as a PM, everything falls on our shoulders. And if we don't have that trust, if you don't know what we're supposed to be doing, then it makes it terribly hard to do anything.
Yep.
Okay. I love it.
And we're still held accountable
Right.
at the end of the day.
Exactly. Exactly. So
Yeah.
from the project like that you're working on now or projects that you're working on in the higher ed space, what's the biggest lesson learned that you can share with the audience right now?
Yeah. I would definitely say I'm trying to make sure that it's not a lesson learned, or I mean that it is a lesson learned more than it is um, probably like my favorite part of it, and it's just that cross functionality of like working in higher ed. Like
Mm-hmm.
it, you have to include so many people,
Yeah.
and I love that. Which I guess in hearing myself say that it is more people that I got to build trust with. You need to stop inviting people to these meetings,
Uh-huh.
to these projects. That's your problem. Um, but I guess the greatest lesson learned of that is, I mean, it's a simple type of communicate. You literally need to send out an email, a 3-page long email, and that's too long. But like
Please don't.
twice a week,
Please don't send me
because
a
they
three
ain't gonna
page because I'm
read
gonna send you
past.
that Viola Davis meme back when I'm picking up my pocketbook. Like, girl, don't send.
I mean, because you still gonna have questions that was included. The answers was included in that email, but it's
Yeah.
disseminating information, and I'm learning. To just disseminate as much information as you can, as
Mm-hmm.
often as you can. But I guess you don't need to let people don't need to know more than what they need to know
Yeah.
as well.
Yeah. So how do
So
you
the
find
lesson
that
is
balance?
I'm learning. I'm like right now. So today, another layer of stress has come off from. I'm implementing new student orientation for our institution, and we have 7 campuses
Mm-hmm.
across DFW. We are almost the largest institution in the community college in the country, over 100,000 students. So it's
Wow.
a huge project. I finally walked through the 7th campus today, and I have a person on the team who's a manager
Mm-hmm.
who has 13 people that reports to her, and her people help on the day of. So
Okay.
she needs to know, the ins and outs of each one to be able to communicate. Well, it's not almost a day goes by that she not asking me something that I wish you wouldn't ask me. This is a podcast. Come on, bring it back. Bring it back.
Like what? Like.
But I mean, because you got to remember, I'm the project manager. I'm not your I'm not your boss.
Yeah.
I'm not your functional the role. Your functional role. I'm not your boss.
Yeah.
I'm just managing this project. So what she's taught me in working so closely with her is, okay, how can I give her the information that she only needs to know?
Yes.
Because if she knows more than what she needs to know, she gonna cause more, work for me. It ain't necessarily work. I don't mind, but I used to be an associate dean,
Mm-hmm.
so I understand her need to be developed as a professional.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But you don't ask the project manager all these questions about,
Yes, they do. You're a
how to do the job.
unicorn. You're a unicorn, and she sees your horn. So yes, yes, they do.
Well, they got what you call a pay scale.
And you ain't up there.
I know that.
I know that's right, but no, that is a super valid point. Like trying to, and we just talked about silos, so we don't want to silo people and the processes, right? We want to work to bring them all together, but sometimes I think communication does have to be siloed. So giving
Yeah.
your executive stakeholders certain information, like really quick information, and then rolling it down to, I think you said she was an associate dean, and then giving her certain bullet points that she can pass on to her team, and then giving that team certain information about how this project will affect them. Is that how you usually do those things?
Well, that's what I'm learning to do. That's why
Gotcha. Okay.
I took the time to describe the project, because it's so big,
Okay.
and so it's been one of my lessons learned, really.
Okay.
And how, already looking at how could I do this better next
Yep.
time.
Yep. So and for me, Felicia, with lessons learned, I learn my lessons right then, and then I take it and apply it tomorrow. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I try not to wait until like the project is over, and do a lessons learned. Like I'll do a lessons learned session with my team, like in the middle of a project, unless the people are really, really getting on my nerve, and I'm just like, I can't with you. But we try to do it like mid project, and even when I go to bed at night, unfortunately, when I go to bed at night and you're still thinking about the project, okay, yeah, how can I do this better? And how can I make tomorrow a little bit better, for my team, for my stakeholders, and things like that? So I do try to apply quickly the lessons that I learned, and not wait until the end of the project. So I would just as a piece of advice, as you are going along.
Thank you, thank you. That's really good advice. And the way that this project is set up is, we implement over 6 Fridays
Mm-hmm.
over the summer, so there is an opportunity to, apply in
Okay.
between each one, especially if it's something that I can correct and just make it better for other people participating.
Yes.
So that's really good advice. Thank
Yes.
you.
I love it. I love it. Um, so we've talked about challenges and things like that. When it comes to leadership, you just talked about someone that needed to develop their skills, right? Personal development. Why do you believe that developing like leadership skills among educators is so important? And what lessons have you learned, about fostering this type of development?
Yeah, so I'm gonna use that word again, and I'm grateful that you feel the same way as my girlfriend who called me a unicorn.
Mm-hmm.
I was When I was associate dean, about 30 people reported to me, and I was stressed like out. I loved my job, but leadership can be stressful when you are doing. It's almost like parenting, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you being a good parent is hard, right? And so my dean would tell me, "You have what it takes to be a leader," and I'm like, "I don't want to do this no more." Like,
Okay.
yeah, but I was pregnant and all of the things, right? So it was where I was in life as well. And she said, I understand, because she's a woman, black woman with 2 kids. She said there was a time when I moved out of leadership purposely too, when my kids were young.
Mm-hmm.
I took a step back when I didn't have any direct reports. So she saw me and where I was, but what she told me was the reason why she thought that I had the skill set to be a leader is because I was always open and listening to my staff, and how I can make their jobs better, how we can make it better for the students, and I just think that that's something that not everybody has, and in a leader, not everybody has in a leader, not every person, but everybody doesn't have the opportunity in a leader, and so it's important to be developed as a leader so that you can just make it a better workplace for the people who report to you,
Yeah.
you know? And so I want to bridge that experience with where I am now, because I'm a project manager. Nobody reports to me,
Uh huh.
right? I take nobody reports to me. But I empathize with all of these people on this project because of my former experience
Yeah.
of being a leader. And so I've recognized when people sometimes sit in roles and they may not be the best at the role, but they lack the opportunity to have a leader that can develop them,
Mm-hmm.
and that can be sad. Uh, we as Black people, a lot of times we don't get the opportunity to get in a big role and not be qualified. A lot of
Right.
times we overqualified,
Right.
but but sometimes you get people in a role and they need help. They need to be developed and I think we all deserve that.
Yeah.
But it's just so important for a healthy workplace. Um, you know, I just think it's so important for help for everyone to be able to be in a better environment, to
Yeah.
be developed.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So, and I heard you say that you're a project manager, no one reports to you. I am a
Mhm.
big proponent. I don't know, I'm going to put out a survey or something, but I think PMI needs to change it from project managers to project leaders, right?
I
Because
love that. I love
yeah, because even though we don't have people necessarily directly reporting to us, like people, like you said, that associate dean, like they still see things in us. They still know that, and we're still like literally leading this project. Like that's our whole thing to do is like to cast this vision and to keep the project on track. And people come to you with their issues, whether they are for the project, right? Because we know a lot of times we have to deal with project issues and conflict and things like that. Or if it's personal development, I'm having a bad day, but I just know that if I tell you about what's going on, you're going to give me a smile and a hug and things like that. So yeah, I definitely think we should be called project leaders. What do you think?
that is so good. That is so good. You need to. I sign a petition.
It's gonna be me and you up there.
That is, I mean, that is so good. It's funny because we have a title right now in our organization called Project Lead.
Okay.
But it doesn't align. But it intrigued my interest when I saw it. I'm like, oh, this is good. But guess what? That title has been around since before the PMO was established.
Okay. Okay.
So
So
they didn't know what to call it, basically.
gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah. Hmm.
So with that role as a project lead, what skills do you think? And I'm assuming that it's aligning with being a project manager. That's what I'm gonna assume. But what skills do you need? Leadership skills do you need as a project leader or a project manager?
Yeah. I think you need excellent communication skills.
Okay.
If they aren't excellent, you at least need to have the drive and ambition to want to make them better. You cannot be closed off and say, "I tried my best, I did my best." If that ain't work for them, no, that ain't gonna work for a
Right.
project manager. So excellent communication skills. Um, I think you need effective listening skills.
Mm-hmm.
Um, because you may not be an expert in the industry, and you got to be able to hear those requirements and listen to people and not include your own opinion
Right.
in it, but still be, curious. Um, I'm gonna use empathy again, right? Most times projects are solving a problem.
Yeah.
Understanding that the people who are on the team want the problem solved as well. They may not have the answer, but being able to guide them to the finish line, to hopefully what's a solution,
Yeah.
I think will help them have an empathy along the way.
Yeah. That empathy is big. I love that part. All right. Well, as we get ready to close out our interview together and our time together, I've had so much fun. Um, give the audience like just one big piece of advice, whether it's about project management and higher education, whatever it might be. Just give us some of your unicorn advice.
um, I think that if you are interested in coming into higher education at the intersection of project management, I think that you can make some really effective and impactful change, lasting change. We're at a point in higher education where we gonna either evolve or dissolve in
Mm,
higher education, right? The generation I think is B is what they're called. Like they're not seeing the value of higher education anymore. So colleges are going to have to evolve in the way in which we do business, So if you are interested in coming in now and you have some of the skill sets that you hear on the Pimp podcast or that we talked about, I think you can be a part of some lasting and effective change.
Yeah, I love it. Y'all come on over to the higher education space. I don't think it gets any better than elevating your mind um, to a higher level. I still love that movie Higher Learning with Omar Epps. Like that was like my favorite
Yeah.
movie in the entire world. So I definitely agree. All right.
Yeah, well, and
Okay.
Ty, I'm sorry, I
Go
know you're
ahead.
closing, but I gotta say this. When you say advice,
Uh-huh.
the my PMP was a game changer for my career. And so, if there's any woman or listener out there who is considering it, you should definitely do it. You can take your time to study. I studied for almost 2 years. But it is a game changer. I hold it almost equivalent to my MBA, if not equivalent. I
Yeah.
mean, it is being able to come to the table. There's not an idea that isn't presented to me that scares me because of this. Because guess what? We're going to break it down and we're going to
Right.
bring it from start to finish.
Right. No,
So, yeah.
that's so true. So I look, so many people come to me and like, oh, can I get my PMP in like 1 month, 2 months? And I'm like, well, if you want to, but why would you want to cram all that? Not because what are you gonna have on the back end? Because as soon as you
Hmm.
take the exam, and if you pass it the first time, you're not going to have anything worth remembering. Like you're not going to be able to take that certification and really apply it out into the workspace. So I definitely agree. Like, and not, you know, everybody's journey is different, but take your
Yeah.
time and learn it and really take it seriously and apply it to what you are attempting to do in the future. So I agree. Like, let's do this. I agree. So, um, y'all, listen. Everything that we do is all about lessons learned, right? Every day we learn a different lesson. So don't be afraid to learn lessons because they are our building blocks for tomorrow. So, Miss Ma'am, while you go call Kyrie and Jason and all them, I just need you to pop your collar because you have been on the Lessons Learned from a Pimp podcast. I salute you, ma'am. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you.
Thank you, Ty.
All
Have a good
right.
night.
You too. Bye
Bye
bye.
bye.